Fabulous humans. Dumelang, Dumelang. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Female Say, a space where women speak. My name is Makabelo Motaung. I also go by the name of Coach KB to some of you. I'm a social and dating coach and your host for this feature. This is a feature I'm going to run for the next 2 weeks on my timeline in celebration of Women's Month. What better way to celebrate it, right? Today, hey, I've got a wonderful, beautiful guest, Mona. Waiting, she's looking all blingy. Waiting, she didn't tell me that we're dressing up. So
I thought
forgive
it
me if I'm the one
was
that's looking. So forgive me if I'm the one that's looking like this, and she's looking like, you know what? She's the owner of this show, mind you.
I thought it
Hi
should look good
guys.
for your show. How?
Hi Dudu.
Hi, how are yous?
Kunjani.
I'm good, can't complain.
You are looking stunning. You're not looking like a mommy, I must tell you.
Ooh, I'm done with, you know what? I think you get your group back when they are approaching two. I feel like myself again. Yeah, no. I'm I'm
You're
so
done
over
with the
that.
mommy look.
Yeah, ooh, I am over it. I'm bringing back my mojo.
Yeah, no, you definitely have it. Dudu, please introduce yourself to the viewers.
Okay, so I'm Dudu Madonsela. I'm a dating coach. I just help people take control of their dating life. I've written for a lot of publications like your
Mhm.
Sowetan's, your New York Face to Face, your Cosmos, you name it. I've done a lot of TV, done a lot of TV with KB, your Mzansi Insiders, your Carte Blanche, oh yeah, and
Please
there's one
talk
in
and more.
September. Yeah, like there's so many, but basically that's it. I really really honestly believe that dating is fun, and entering a relationship, you can enter healthy relationships, and there's some things that I have learned throughout the years. I've been in the game for almost 10 years. I can't believe that. And I love just imparting the knowledge and hoping people can enter healthy and fulfilling and sustainable relationships.
I get that. I so get that. So, I mean, Dudu Nalo and I have been working together for a while. In fact, there's a picture that I found the other day, and I wanted to surprise you with it and put it here so that people see what,
Which
like,
one is
how old
that?
we are. You know, the one where we dressed in black, Mola, where we had
Oh, Matoni. I know
we
those
still had the
pictures.
attitude and we thought we knew it all.
I know those pictures. And my bum is so big in
I'll put,
that picture. You,
I swear, Dudu.
it is almost chubby. No one was telling me how much weight I gained during that time. You guys were just
I
nice.
know, man, you looked good. You looked good. Anyway, Nalo and I have been working together for a while, and how we met, I don't even know if I should articulate the story, but how we met was because we were struggling with our love lives, basically. You know, it was missing us, Mujolo no Drapa from here to, like, we were just, Usawa Wajola wazama, but this thing was, we were just not getting it right, eh?
Hmm.
And I thought today we should talk about this from our experience, and also just giving the other women the tips, because
Yeah.
we struggled, man, eh? And this was years ago, over 7 years ago, I think,
This is 10
Um,
years, KB.
it's a long
I
time ago.
met
Hey?
you in 2010, 2011.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, it's been years.
Yeah.
But basically today's conversation is about healing how you relationship. Do you identify with that? Have you ever had to heal how you relationship in order to get it right? Have you ever had to change the way you relate to men, especially,
So KB, I think throughout the years, I've learned how there's something called an attachment theory, and there's four types
Mm,
of attachment theories. And my form of attachment, I mean, most of my friends would call me cold and so forth and whatever, is avoidance. But when I actually look back and I look at my mom, so if you look at my mom, throughout the years, she's become much more of a warmer person. But my mom was raised by her grandmother because her mother died when she was 3 months old,
mm,
Um, and my grandmother, who I was named after, was a very strict woman, very loving, but very strict woman, right? And my
mm,
mom and the father, my grandmother and my mom's father wanted my mom to be such an independent, you must go out there, you must do your thing kind of woman. And I think when it comes to just showing love. So when I was growing up, my mom was the type of person. If you said, "Oh, I've got a headache," she'd be like, "Do you wanna go to the doctor or not?" Like if you say, like, then you shall suffer in peace. She. So, and I think that my attachment style to people was very much informed by that. I don't know if maybe also being the middle child also played a very big role in me being, I'm fine, I'm independent, I can do this on my own. And I think I went through life, I've always been getting this feedback, even from at high school. My peers used to tell me, you're very clinical, you're very, you can come across as cold, ignored it. In varsity, they'd always tell me to do such a nice person, but she can be a cold hearted bee,
Mm,
ignored it. And I think when it came to interpersonal relationships and dating, so I mean, my first proper relationship was really in varsity, and I was attracted to an emotionally unavailable man, another Dudu. Interesting, and he broke my heart, but I just took it as it's one of those things, your first proper relationship and so forth. And I think by the
mm,
time you met me, KB, I'd been getting feedback from the world, even from a work perspective, that you need to learn to open yourself up to people. And I just didn't know how to. And I guess maybe a career, and because when I was doing dating coaching, I was doing a holistic improvement of myself. So I'd
mm,
gotten myself a career coach, I'd gone back to business school, and I was also like, let me also look at this relationship thing and so forth. And I guess maybe the two things that were most important to me at that particular moment was where I was getting the most feedback, and
mm.
it forced me to look within me. And it was a journey, like quite a journey. I mean, my seduction style is I can be a coquette and just ignore people for weeks and so forth. But I'd had to heal that side of me. But I think most people don't realize that before you start healing, you need to understand why you are the person that you are. And I think in the process, had to heal the relationship I had with my mom. So as much as, I can be a distant person, I always wanted my mom to just like, I wanted to come home and tell my mom about boys and cry, and my mom
Yeah.
hugs me, and my mom, I tell her about boys and stuff like that, and she'd be like, "There's more to life than boys, like carry on." And she like just hold me. And I had to heal that relationship, also understand why she loved me the way she loved me. She didn't know better herself. And it's interesting that once actually, it was one of the days where I had an epic fight with my sister. And then somehow my mom's name was involved. And then I called my mom, and I literally was so angry at her. And I said, "Yeah, this is why my sister and I relate the way we are." And I guess from that, it was a turning point in my life. We could have conversations, and it was also an aha moment for her. And it was also an aha moment for me to
For
understand where she
you.
comes from.
Mm.
And it allowed me to heal. And I think the biggest lesson I got from that was that I am my mother's daughter in every way. Even the way I look, if you see my mom, you see Dudu. I'm my mother's daughter. And I had to say, if this is a generational thing, it's going to stop with me. If I'm going to have kids, I know better now. My mom didn't know better. So not only was I healing for me, but I was healing so that I can bring life into this planet that doesn't have to go through this healing process when they're adults.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess,
I can
yeah.
definitely relate to that because Nalo, I know when we first met, we didn't like each other. In fact, I didn't like you, and I don't know why.
No, you were just mean.
Dudu was mean, and she had just this thing. She just annoyed me from the moment she opened her mouth. I didn't even think we'd be friends at some point. But one of the things that with healing relationships that I've had to go through was understanding how I related to men and how that affected me. I knew that I related to men, and I didn't have a reference of how to relate to a man because I only met my dad later on in my life. I didn't know that. But these things affect your life whether you like it or not. I didn't know how to be in a relationship and let it be. It's almost like you wanted so bad to control the relationship for it to work out. You'd be
Yeah,
like
an
1 minute, I found a great
outcome.
guy. I found a
Mm,
great guy, and then you hang on so bad. You are so over pleasing to this guy that wamutabisa, whether you like it or not.
yeah.
What are some of the mistakes that women are doing in relationships that just makes them firstly undateable before you even get to relationships? What are some of the things that women do that just make them very hard to date?
Oh, there's a couple of things, KB. So I think a lot of women don't understand that a relationship is an aspect of their lives. You know, you're a complete person. There's things that make you an interesting person. You can't all be about relationships. Just like, you know, at work, if you have this person who's all about work, they're just annoying, right? So a lot of women, it's almost like they put the relationships at the center of everything. And now that I'm in my 30s, you know, in my 20s, it was all about I just want a boyfriend, and you know, like women are just aiming for marriage. And then what I'm observing now is also that they'll put the relationship at the center of everything, and they have kids, they have other things and so forth, and everything else in their lives is ignored or neglected, or you know, the this relationship takes prevalence of everything. And I think that's the one thing, is that we are socialized to prioritize others and to value an interpersonal romantic relationship above everything else. And most women think, especially I find that with a lot of wives, where they enter marriages and they feel like they dedicate their whole lives and their whole beings into this marriage, and they lose themselves in the process. And 5 years down the line, when the guy gives them feedback that you're a completely different person, they feel like this isn't fair. And that's because of the fact that we are socialized to say, you are the one who's solely responsible for making a marriage work. You are the one who's
Mm,
solely responsible for making sure there's a spark in the relationship, there's this and this and this. And we don't realize that, you know what, if this is one component of who we are, and we work on other components of us, we'll be able to prioritize what needs to be prioritized at that time, and you wouldn't lose yourself. I think the most evident thing is fear. You know, a lot of women, whether they're in toxic relationships or they are chasing after emotionally unavailable men, it's almost like they walk around with this fear. And you know, KB, you know, when we went to seduction classes, and when we started doing our own dating coaching, you know, one of the things that we were very adamant about was that if I meet Jimmy today and Jimmy doesn't work out to be the person that I want him, there'll be another guy, whether he comes 4 months
mm,
down the line, 5 months down the line. But when you go into the source of fear and you try and understand why do these women fear that if I let go of Jimmy, there won't be another Tabang, I realized,
mm,
you know, the quality of people that you attract is dependent on whether you are a full expression of yourself. So you know, I always say, if people say, I'm attracting losers, you know, the kind of guys that I don't like, and I'm like, what about you that makes you attractive to losers? And I think the fear comes from a lot of women, when you speak to them and when maturity kicks in, they know what they need to work on in order to be a full expression of themselves. There are some people who might say, listen, I don't feel that I am valuable. I'm a valuable member of society because I can't take care of myself financially. Then you dig deep and you say, what do you need to do to take care of yourself financially? And they'll say, maybe I need to go to school, or I need to take my career more seriously, or I need to find another avenue to make money. And then it's that next step that people, you know, somebody used to say they're lazy. I don't know if it's laziness or not, but I think self improvement is one of the most difficult things a person can do. And it requires some honesty and honest conversations that you need to have with yourself. And some people just are not ready to have those honest conversations. Some people are not ready to look at them and say, Dudu, you know what? You really suck. That's why those boys like keep running away from you. Or you know what, Dudu, you've got like, you're just finicky. You know, somebody used to call me fufushishi, which is an American term to say, you know, those
it sounds
girls
like
who've
a
got,
dog's name.
yeah, you know, like when somebody has just standards and standards and standards, and it's just impossible to deal with. And I had to take that in, and you know, and understand that maybe I turned men off because I was very fufushishi. And I think most people, that fear is because they know fundamentally they need to work on themselves, but they're just not willing to make that step. I think the other mistakes is that people just, you know, no one teaches us how to date. So we get this,
Yeah.
actually, no one teaches us how to relationship completely. So you get this dating advice where it's warnings. Boys will do this to you. Boys will make you pregnant. Boys will break your heart. Boys will whatever. Don't trust a man. Oh, you know, and whatever. When you are young. And they think they're giving you dating advice, but they're actually just giving you a whole lot of warnings. You enter your 20s, that's when people start having heartbreaks and they become jaded, and they're like, never open yourself completely in a relationship. We are very good at the don't say, don't do this, don't do this,
Yeah.
don't do this. But nobody teaches us how to. It's like also when you enter a marriage, when they yalla you, like itse go yala ka Sesotho ke eng, mara ka Sezulu ha ba o yala ba o jwetsa all the things that you need to do so that your husband doesn't go astray, right? It's very few women, or what you need to do if there's a mistress, or this is what a woman does. Nobody's teaching you anything. People are just giving you warnings and
Mm.
instructions and this and this. And I think I found that a lot of people just don't know how to date, and it's an
Yeah.
art and it's a skill. Just like you go to school to learn how to be a teacher, unfortunately dating is something that can be taught, and I'm trying to make that knowledge available to as many women as possible, not only for them but for also their daughters. That's one of the things they can teach their daughters, but it has to be a lived experience, because it's one thing to tell somebody don't do this, but when your daughter has just seen you pathetic in the love department. So I think that's the main things that I pick up.
Yeah, I think for me, I see some of my clients are here actually, but I'm not going to talk about that. Oh, Dudu, you've got a nasty comment here from Nokuli Elila. I was nodding so hard when you said she's mean. Just biting my tongue. She's very mean. Wow. Wow, Dudu.
And
You're
I don't
pissing
even.
you're pissing people off already.
Oh yeah, no, no, no. I
Um,
went to just a quick story. I went to some private chat. What? A friend of mine was like, no, she wants to do some relationship stuff for married women, and she just needs me to help her to set it up. And I went there, and it's about love and marriages and all sorts of things. And I was there for 2 weeks, and I was just observing there. And then when you're just with a bunch of women who complain, 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 but they don't reflect and look at how am I an enabler to this, or where, like, I have some degree of power. And then I wrote a post in true Dudu style. I wrote and I said, this is my observation. And at the end, I said, the one thing that I've noticed a lot here is that people believe they're unlovable and they have a low self esteem. Hey, KP, those women nearly, if they could stab me, they almost they couldn't stab me. I was like, what's up? So people were saying, yeah, truth, 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 truth. And then there were those who were like, yo, you are horrible. Ooh, you shouldn't be a
yeah.
coach. Ooh, this. So maybe that Lila's one of those. Who knows?
She's had a bad experience, Nile.
Well,
But look, what I found as well was, when you're not ready to hear information, when you're not ready to understand. I remember at some point, I think we attended Kagiso's sessions as well as the seduction and whatever, and the seduction one offered more quick solutions. It offered quick remedies. Do this to a man, he love
yeah,
you. Wear like this, sound like this,
yeah,
do this. Go on a date, look like this, do this. It was a lot of tick checklisting, and so they'll drive you crazy if you're a woman who's ready to really get at the bottom of what's happening that's wrong. And it's
mm.
almost like you become a robot. Okay, I must say one and two. I mastered dating. I mean, I remember at some point I
Shem,
went
you were
on.
the queen, Shem.
I was a queen. Like, listen,
You
at
were
some
my role
point,
model in life.
at some point, I went on a date. I think the whole week in Jacket, not only the date. Like I knew how to get men to take me on dates, and I knew what to say to get them excited, and I knew. But then still, at the end of it, I couldn't sustain a relationship, and I was not in relationships that I wanted. And for me, I feel like if you ever want to fix how you date and how you relationship, forget about quick solutions. Forget about a man wants this, do this, put
Mm,
a cinnamon in your milk, put this to make him. Everything that we seem to do is always towards pleasing the man. It's always towards being lovable to the man. And it's
yeah,
so exhausting. It is
it
so
is.
exhausting that by the time you realize this, you're like, fuck Jolo completely. I'm fine. I don't want a man.
Exactly.
but but what is it that women are not understanding about what relationships reflect? And you've touched on a bit of it when you said relationships reflect who we are. What are some of the work that women don't realize they need to do to to fix their relationship? I mean, I remember to do a very clear on your life at some point. You were like, you know what, I'm gonna get married at 35, I'm gonna have a child, I'm gonna do this. I'm like, nako ha jolly lo jola tutu.
It's not old.
you know Now go to do. There was no stability. There was this. There was that. There was
I had a
whoever
partner.
needing a holiday. You know, Nako, but you were very clear on this is the year that I settled down. This is the year that, and you've learned your relationship the longest because you dated your husband for 2 years before you guys got married. You know,
Actually,
and
this is
I
the longest
watched you
relationship I've ever been to. Ever
exactly.
been
I
in.
watched
5 years. I'm like, nah, 5 years, ki lastile. Yeah. This is amazing. I think I've lost you for 10 seconds.
I watched how
Can you hear
you
me? Because I can. There's some sound, but I'm not hearing you properly.
somebody give me an indication.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Yes. So I was explaining how in the 2 years you've navigated the relationship differently to how you've always navigated every other relationship. You know, there was no walking away. This time you were prepared to sort things out. There was no, okay, he disappointed me, therefore bye. Mutu to me now you can't do, you know, you worked things out, you knew you had a goal, you know. And how did you get to that point? How did you transaction from Dudu or I don't care whatever bye to now this Dudu who was so clear and precise in how she carried and maneuvered the relationship?
You know, I always say I went to a seduction coach to find myself a man, and I ended up finding myself. I think through our
Yeah.
journey, in I think with the seduction coach and with Kagiso, the one thing that I realized, I was like, everything in my life, I'm the center of it, right? And I had to take ownership of certain things about myself. I had to take ownership of how I come across to other people. I had to take ownership of how I sabotage relationships, or take ownership of why I choose the people that I do. I think that that's the first point, is that the ownership and that the sense of awareness, right? And then the second part of
Mm.
that was that I had to live the life that I desired. And it's very hard, KB. Like, for example, I was in a relationship with somebody for, I think, I don't know, 2 years or 2.5 years or something like that. And I felt like I was sleepwalking throughout that relationship. And when I left that relationship, I was blaming this guy. You made me forget about my dreams. You made me lower my standards and whatever. And then I realized, Jim, he didn't do it. Well, he didn't do any of those things. I lowered my standards in order to meet him where he was. He was living his best life wherever he was, right? And whatever.
Mm.
And I'm the one, I took responsibility of that. And then and it had a knock on my self-esteem, because now I was, my peers, the people that I went to varsity with and whatever, they'd done things focused on their careers. Career was always important to me. Focused on their careers, and I was doing fine, but I was like, you know what? I'm not where I was. I would want to be. And I had to humble myself. I had to go and do a postgrad degree. I had to almost like I moved out of home and I started my life from scratch. It felt like I was starting my life from scratch. I was taking myself out of the comfort zone. I come from a very comfortable home. There was no need for me to move, but I needed to be independent. Stop being daddy's little girl. Stop waiting for the world to solve my problems for me.
Mm.
And it was a process. And every time, KB, you know how it's like, where we used to say, sometimes, as much as we wanted to be these goddesses, there were moments where we felt like we were basic. But I also had to learn to forgive myself. So I was like, if the journey is going to end me here, and this is where I want to be, if I derail a bit, it's just having that honest conversation with myself, and also learning to forgive myself. And I think I did that. But I think the most important thing is that I woke up one day and I said, what is the story that I would like to write with regards to my life? And I said,
Mm.
this is where I am. This is the gap, and this is where the story that I'd like to live in the future. And I always teach my girls. I always say, you must sometimes do this thing where I say you create an imaginary boyfriend, and every night when you go to sleep, you dream about this man and the life that you want to live. It sounds very stupid, but actually, even from an energy perspective, what it does is that it gears you up to align yourself with the energy fields of the universe that are aligned with the things that you want for yourself, number one. Number two, I felt like, if I could live this life in my imagination, in the physical space, I felt like, you know what, the Dudu that I see every single night, would she do this? No, she wouldn't do this. And I would self-correct. I think I'd gotten to a point, and I mean, with the dating coaching, it was amazing. Like I mean, just before I met my husband, I was having the best time of my life. I was dating. There were lots of people. There was lots of dramas and whatever, you know. But one thing that I had to be honest about myself was that I was no longer fulfilled. I wasn't no longer
Mm.
fulfilled. The fact that there's 100 men who call me and I can dispose anyone, and people are like paying for my flight tickets and everything that I need in life, but I didn't feel fulfilled. And I think
Mm.
I sat down, and when I tell the story, like I went to visit my cousin's sister in the UK, and one of the countries we went to was Scotland, and I went into a cathedral there, and I said a silent prayer, and I said, God, I will not go on any date or entertain any guy until you send me my soulmate. Now you can imagine a girl who used to have, I mean, when I went to the UK, already there were 3 people who said I was evil. They never want to talk to me again. I'm horrible and whatever. Having that option of people whining and dining you in the most fantastic ways, to having the discipline to say, you know what, I've called this to the universe and I am going to stick to it. I used to
Yeah.
spend my Friday nights in pajamas. And my sister used to say, which man is going to marry you if you are sitting in pajamas, because no one is going to find you? And I literally found my husband on Facebook. We fought on Facebook, and that's how we found each other. But the whole point is that it was dedication to myself. And then to say, if I make a decision about my life, even if it's uphill sometimes, even if you don't, KB, sometimes you'd visit a guy and you really want to sleep over and you just really want to be basic about it. But then you kind of know what the outcome is going to be the next day. And you just take your stuff and you leave at 12 o'clock at night. To some people, they don't realize that when they don't teach other people how to treat them,
Mm.
that it's a never ending cycle of being played or taken advantage of. But just walking away from something, even if it looks good, but it's not good for you, some people find it hard to do, and it takes a lot of discipline. And I think for me, that was that phase in my life where I was particularly disciplined about this
Mm.
particular thing. And interestingly enough, KB, that kind of focus and discipline, and I always tell people, and I say, if you can master your interpersonal relationships, if you can master dating, and if you can master just being in healthy relationships, you can take that focus and discipline into other areas of your life. 5 years ago, when I met my husband, before I met my husband, I was so adamant about, this is how I'm being true to myself, and this is what I'm going to do with regards to relationships. I'm at that point with regards to my dating coaching career, from the price that I charge, to how I show up, to who I entertain, to when it comes to that. And I find that the same energy, that mindset that I had from a relationship perspective, that I have now, I'm seeing my dating coaching career take a much more positive turn because of that focus and discipline that I'm bringing to it.
Yeah, definitely that's a mouthful. But one of the other things that I've also picked up, nna ke gore, in defining even the type of men that you want to date, we get that wrong.
Mm.
Your checklist is not even what you want, as
Or
basic as that. I
practical.
mean, and this is like grade A, grade now, because I feel like we fail even at that stage. And it doesn't
Yeah.
matter where you are in terms of your career, it doesn't matter how much you have as a woman, but some of these mistakes that we make are mistakes that kids make when they're
Yeah.
starting to date. For example, somebody's checklist would be, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but be clear about your checklist. For me, if you're going to say, I want a guy who stays in this place, drives this car, makes this money, you have no ambition of your own, you have nothing that you're bringing to the table, you're not happy even where you are, you're looking at this man to come and be your rescuer actually. What are some of the mistakes that we make from just in the defining of the men that we want? Like, this is what are we not clear about? What why are we dating the men that we don't even want? Because here's the checklist and here are the men that are coming to me. Like,
It
Ivana,
doesn't.
this is not
Yeah.
what I asked for.
Yeah. So the two things, KB, I think one is that there's a point in our life whereby we form ideas about ourselves. I once spoke about in one of my videos where I said that when there's 7-year cycles or 9-year cycles. It just depends on the psychology school of thought that you come from. But the cycle thing says that a person changes every 7 years, and let's say we use the 7-year cycle every 7 years, and that's why even in a marriage you'll hear people talk about the 7-year itch, just simply meaning that the person that you were when you got married to this person, you're a different person to that, and your needs and your desires are now different, and you look at this relationship and determine whether it meets you. So we, at a certain point, especially in our 20s or maybe in our late teens, people define themselves, and they define, this is what I want, and this, and they forget that they evolve. So I
Yeah.
have the standard that I had when I was 20 of men, and maybe a standard of myself. So, for example, I wanted this guy who is rich, amazing, whatever and whatever, because Lynn now was going to be Mrs. CEO and do things for myself and whatever. And then comes my 30s, and I want something that's completely different. Maybe I want to be a free spirit and so forth and whatever. And I still want to tie myself to somebody who is going to come home at 9 o'clock at night. And then now my values, I desire more somebody who spends time with me and so forth. Now my values and the person that I desire are no longer aligned, right? Because the person that I desire, I defined this person when I was 20 years old. So I think that's the first, is that people hold on of an idea that they had, and they don't look at how their values and how them as people have evolved over the years. That's number one.
Mm.
Number two, I think also there's this thing that I call a dating market value, which is so it's like the brutal truth of dating. You know, if somebody's watching this video and as a woman, if you get this, I think you will have less issues with dating if there's one thing that you take away from this video. And what the dating market value says, it says human beings are aspirational beings, right? So that's why we aspire to have, like, that's why luxury brands, you know, they sell the exclusivity, you know, that they sell us aspirations, because human beings are wired in that sense. And
Mm.
everyone has their own, from a cultural perspective, from a social conditioning perspective, from a geographic location perspective. We all have our, and maybe even levels of education or exposure to the world. We all have ideas of what makes up a great partner. So what it says is that if Dudu is a 6, Dudu ultimately desires to be with a 7 or an 8, right? So a 7 is like,
Mm.
an 8, it's beyond my wildest dreams, right? And whatever. But you know what? If I end up with another 6, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. And if a 5 comes along, that's when I'm starting to settle, right? And it's the same for men. But what women don't understand is that if a man regards himself, or society deems himself as a 7, right? He's probably either looking for another 7 or a woman who is an 8 or a 9.
Mm.
Understand what that 7, 8, 9 means to that particular man. I always say identify your segment, and you must understand how you want to play in that segment. You know, my dad once gave me advice. He said there's two things you can do as a woman in life. You can either find somebody who's looking for you, or you can become the person that other person is looking for. It's very hard to become, and I feel like you lose your
Mm.
authenticity when you become. But if you find the person that who is looking for you, and I think that's one of the things that I did. I said, you know, I want to end up with this kind of partner and this type of person. I studied those men and I said, what do they value in a woman, right? And whatever it is
Mm.
that they valued, I looked and said, is it that which I aspire to be? Nah. Or that I am already? Is it aligned with what that particular segment values? And I've had people where, KB, they've gone and they've worked on themselves before they actually
Mm.
went into the market and they dated, because they wanted you know, I always make an example where I met these girls. They always go to the Grand Prix, well, pre-corona, and I asked them and I said, Joe, we know when you go like to a Monaco Grand Prix, you probably need to save up about 150,000. And they said they go there every 3 years. And I said, why? And she said, the level of guy that I want is found in those spaces. So what I've done is that I've worked on everything around me to position myself to be able to attract that guy. Unfortunately, the psychology of human beings works like that. When a person meets you, a guy meets you, he assigns a market value to you in the same way as when we meet men, we assign a market value. That's why we call some men losers and, you know, some men desirable and so forth and whatever. And if you find yourself attracting men of a certain market value, it is also representative of the market value that you have. You know, we have this term, KB, where we used to call people, but Mr. Can't believe. Because the Mr. Cunningham
Yeah.
is the guy who says, I'm a 5. And then Dudu, who's a 7, took interest in me. He can't believe, like, this girl. Because even guys themselves, by the time they approach women, they usually, because women don't understand, men are very timid beings. And they, in my experience, most of them have actually much more of a lower self esteem than we actually think they are. So most guys, if they fear rejection, they're probably going to play in the segment where they are most accepted. That's why you can find a guy who's very rich. Mara atamayali, maybe the airheads, or and you're like, but when you are very educated, you've got a PhD, but utamayale batho we like akuna match. But I always say his self-esteem, he's dating at the level of his self-esteem. So you might see him as a 9, una di PhD, or get a businessman or whatever. But yeah, deep inside, he feels like he's a 5. So Hatamaya Libo Mang Mang, who are a 5s in your eyes, that's where he is. He feels like that from a self-esteem perspective. And I think now for me, just to answer your question, those are the two things from a standards perspective. Is that we set standards when we are young and we never revise them in line with the people that we are. And then we also set standards in the context of our own isolated world, not in the context of how the rest of the world works. So once you understand
Mm.
how the people you are attracted to also assign value, then you can be able to look at your standards and say, from a standard perspective, and the person that I seek realigned or
Yeah. Guys, I think you heard that you date at the level of your self-esteem, whether you're a man or woman. I think this applies.
Mhm.
But there's this thing as well that you like saying, and I want you to explain it to people when you say, "Show me who you're sleeping with, and I'll tell you what
Your
story of
philosophy
your life."
about your life.
Yes, exactly. What
So
does that mean?
it means, Jorge, how you feel about yourself determines the lovers that you pick. I always say, if somebody comes and they're talking about their relationship or the person that they're with, I always say, the person that you sleep with. If there was a committee of judges of men or judges of people, and they said, okay, show me the person that you're sleeping with, what would it say about you? So if, for example, I used to say, I used to choose emotionally unavailable men. Bo di F boys bo ne ke ba rata ka pelo le moya le di kidneys. And the reason why is because I had a low self-esteem at that particular point in my life. I felt, you know what, ne? Like, emotionally unavailable men are going to leave you anyway. They don't know how to connect with, they don't know how to be deep with human beings. I knew deep down fundamentally they'll disappoint me. But I was like, anyway, ke disappointer ke player. It's okay. It's not like there's a decent guy who's disappointing me. So my self-esteem will take a bigger knock from that perspective. And I think people most of the time, they go and they look at their lovers and they find everything that is wrong. He's busy cheating, he's busy whatever and stuff like that. But you can find a man whereby he's with a woman and he cheated on this woman his whole entire life. And then he finds Makabel and he never cheats on Makabel. Now people think there's something amazing about Makabelo, or Makabelo una le voodoo or go go na le ntho e vibrating when Makabelo does certain things and whatever. But it's not necessarily that. It's because Makabelo has held herself to a certain standard and she's put certain boundaries. You know what? This is how you treat me. If you treat me otherwise, now I'm going to walk. And I think a lot of women don't realize, Hore, it is you who is in charge of the narrative of how people treat you. It is you who's in charge of the narrative of the people that you choose. Like, I mean, anyone of us that's either rape or something else, right? And whatever. But you
Mm.
chose this person. And if you chose this person, it must say something about you. And then now I think that was also very important in a certain turning point in my life. KB, I don't hate any of my exes. And my exes have gone and made babies with other people when I was with them. I mean, Honalo one that trend, I go Twitter and he had slept with, I always say he slept with half of Johannesburg. But I literally don't hate them. Because when I walked out, eventually when I had the aha moment, I realized, these people, if they are a problem, they're a problem for them. Like, it life
Mm.
I'd say. So if somebody's sleeping with the half of Johannesburg, he's putting his whole life at risk. Nah, I looked at myself and I said, I mean, especially the one where he was sleeping with half of Johannesburg. I had an on and off 2-year thing with him and whatever. But at the end, I looked at myself and I said, I can't change him. But nah, I have to ask myself, why am I choosing this person? What about me is making me choose this particular individual
Mm.
who is on many levels is not good for me? And I guess when people get to that point where they look at the person they're sleeping with and they say, what does it say about me? Then can they be able to then look at themselves honestly and say, if I'm making these choices, something about me is either wrong or broken inside, and I need to go back and fix that.
Yeah. I also think, the same way with life, where when you hit rock bottom, that's when, you either come out from there the best version of yourself or whatever. I think it's the same with dating, where when you hit rock bottom, we born man, why seeking
When you're crying because you're crying.
like, what is
You're not
happening?
crying because you're crying.
You,
When you're like,
you're like,
I'm crying because
I'm incapable of attracting the right men, and they don't know how to love me, they don't value me, you know, or just when I think I've found someone, 2 months later, this guy is not interested in me anymore. But everything was going well and it was going great. So I think sometimes we need to hit rock bottom with dating for us to know and choose better, and back to your point as well, Hore, that's when you decided to work on yourself. And it always brings us back to ourselves. So what is a healthy dating for you? How can I have a healthy dating life? What do I mean?
I think the first thing is that you look at, for example, power dynamics in the relationship. So there's a lot of women where they are with men whereby the man is tangling this carrot. Or you know what, if you jump high enough, ke tlo go nyala. If you jump high enough, you might be my girlfriend and so forth and whatever. That's not a healthy power dynamic in a relationship, right? A healthy power dynamic should say, you and this person are more or less on the same level. As I'll say, when it comes to power, it's a scale, ne? But you can't have a scale that's always sitting like this. Sometimes it's like this, sometimes it's like this. So you must feel like, you know what, even if this person maybe in a certain area of our relationship holds the power. Let's say, for example, he's the one who makes the money in the relationship. Even though he holds the money in the relationship, how does that make me feel? If it makes you feel like you're financially trapped, if it makes you feel like whenever you have to beg for stuff or you have to turn a blind eye, that's not a healthy
Mm,
power dynamic. But if you are in a relationship where somebody makes the money, but when you feel like you also have a say in this relationship, just because you're making 10 cents and he's making 100,000 doesn't necessarily mean you are excluded from certain decisions
mm,
in this particular relationship. So I always say key healthy power dynamic. And I also think the power dynamic, not the power dynamic, what makes a healthy relationship is what we expect of each other. Sometimes people come in with daddy issues, with mommy issues, with heal me from my past lover, and so forth and whatever. And then we just have unrealistic expectations of our lovers, right? But to I are human, there's
mm,
only they also experience joy, laughter, frustration, and a whole lot of things, and if the men who are listening to this, KB, I'm a stepmom, and I've attracted a lot of stepmoms who come in and they confide in me because they feel like they can't tell the world how they feel. And if you look
mm,
at the real issue, and it's one thing, it's always the expectation that the husband and everybody else, maybe in-laws or even the baby mama, has on this particular person. Or you know what? You're walking into this relationship because you said yes to the man. It means that, you know what, re tlo phara ka bana. You can't have a decision. You don't have decision making power around these kids. You can't be, they don't allow you to try parent. They want to
mm.
co-parent, make decisions, and then
Separately.
when yeah, and then you must just execute on decisions that you can't have a say in. And when you try to have a say in it, it always reflects to how you feel about the kids. So that's one example where I say from an expectation management, do we have realistic expectations of the people that we are with? Because
Mm,
once Hore, you know what, now for example, let's say for example, as a person, you want to be looked after, right? And you want to be financially looked after, but you have a great partner who loves you. Maybe he's doing well in life and whatever, but he can't buy you that private jet and whatever and stuff like that. I always say, you must look and say, okay, I have this is a desire that I have. Is it fair for me to have the expectation for somebody to buy me a private jet when I even know how difficult it is to even afford a private jet? And those are the things, like, from an expectation perspective, I always look at. And sometimes you might have expectations because they come from an unhealthy place. So
Mm.
just because you have expectation doesn't mean that the basis of that expectation comes from a healthy place. You might have an expectation how, I hear people say when my man is out at night, first thing visa application form that needs to be filled, and then he has to be home by 12 o'clock. And if he's 1 minute past 12, hey, and stuff like that. And then you ask them, why does it matter o fitlha ka 12 or o fitlha ka 1? And then you see they were in a relationship, they were cheated on, they were taken for granted and whatever. So now they're safeguarding their space, right? And whatever. And you
Mm.
now have this expectation on a person. Just because somebody's married to you, it doesn't mean how nali visa application you must be home by 12 and whatever. Doesn't mean that's a healthy expectation. And you must look at where it comes from. And maybe you might have to go and heal that part first. And then after healing, ask yourself, do you still have the same expectation? Somebody might say, you know what, maybe I'm not so finicky about 12 o'clock, but I would like my lover to be home by a certain time because of safety. I worry, and he's not home. Or is he safe, especially in the country that we live in? Now that comes from a healthy place.
Mm.
Now
Mm.
that is and even when you communicated with your lover, it's such a way it doesn't come from a place of I'm dictating, you must, you must, you must. So I think that's from a healthy relationship. And I think the relationship overall, like, you know, relationships are something like this, right? I think a relationship is like this. Mara highly so, like, where it's just constantly up and down. A relationship must overall, every night, or how it's our auditor, how we have this relationship every week or every month or whatever. Overall, it must feel good. You must feel like, being with this person has contributed to my growth. Whether I've had to do growth by myself, there are some people just inspire you to be the better version of themselves, of yourself, without them doing
Mm.
anything. There are some people who invest in you and you become a better version of yourself. But relationships must feel overall, you must sit back and say, it feels good.
Mm.
There's things that annoy me or I'm unhappy, but overall, like, yeah, it just feels good. It feels
Mm.
natural. Not it,
Yeah.
which is a good, yeah, content. Yeah, it's just that good.
Yeah, and I also think that the type of friendships that you keep around when you're trying to establish or form a relationship also plays a role, especially when you're starting out and dating and stuff. Because I remember at some point we were so happy single, like we were doing everything to develop ourselves. We did courses, we did so many things that were never around a man, even though we were like dating or whatever, or trying this thing
Yeah.
out, but it was never the core focus, and you look back in the years that we've been doing this, how much you've grown as a person and whatever. And I think people forget to just have fun in the moment of dating. Like we take it so seriously, Some of the annoying questions, not annoying because they are my clients, but some of the questions that your clients would come to you with, you're like, you shouldn't be worrying about this and this and this and this. What are some of the things that people come to you for, and you're thinking they shouldn't even be coming to you for those solutions? What are
Fixes.
some of what are some of the oh, potang gore mara.
But how do I make him stop cheating on me? How do I make him love me? How do I make him? And I'm like, okay, sweet. Then you're like, okay, fine. Because then you start and you realize, there's something deeper at play, right? And you go there. So that's why, like on my page, I always tell people, I have a Q&A day. If you send me an inbox, I'm not going to answer it. And not because I'm being mean, but most people, they don't ask questions with an intention to grow. They ask a question with an intention to find a quick fix, right? And then I'm not a quick fix kind of dating coach. But then somebody would say, like, how do I make him stop cheating on me? Then you're like, okay, do you understand what role you play in this person carrying on taking you for granted? So let's start with you. Maybe there's a self-esteem issue. Maybe there's a conditioning where you come from a home where the mother was always cheated on. How do we heal that part? Most people don't want to do that. They don't want to do the hard stuff. They want to do the easy kind of thing. The other thing that I find very frustrating is that you have a woman and you coach her and you tell her, oh, you know what? Whatever I'm teaching you, you're gonna do in the beginning, maybe it's 40% of what I'm teaching you. Then it's going to be 60%, it's going to be 80% and whatever. When, we even have turnaround strategies where, what, if you bump your head and you happen to land on his bed naked, how do you turn it around and bring it back to track and so forth and whatever? You find that when people either make a mistake or they forget themselves, or sometimes they go, F it, it's life, what, I'll recover from this and whatever. They don't want consistency. They don't carry on. They don't go and pick themselves up. There are people who are addicted to coaching. I always say, I only coach you for 6 sessions. Then after that, you must go out there and you must practice and you must make the mistakes, but you must learn. But there are people who want to be handheld, to say, now what do I do next? And what do I do next? And I always say, I teach you the principles, but you apply your style. We have different personalities. We have different realities and so forth. I can teach you the principles, but you'd work them differently with the people that you're with or in your situation. But people want to be handheld. I find that's some of the things that, from a coaching perspective, that frustrates me. And I think the other thing, KB, I feel like the work that I do from a coaching perspective, I really honestly just want to help humanity. I almost feel like in life, this is some kind of calling of mine. But I've had to learn, Jorge. I have to charge for the service. I mean, our model. One-on-one coaching is a volumes business, but it's not a lot of money. We coach because we want to coach. We coach because we love it. Or sometimes you genuinely want to just help a person. The money comes from the TV and other things and talks and whatever and stuff like that and whatever. But I've had to learn, Jorge. So I'll have free stuff, right? And whatever. Or people used to write Madonsela the inbox and I'll entertain them until match stage 7. Then I'll say to them, I'm just going to have a class. And this class is going to be 5 classes and I'm going to charge you 200, which is, it's not even my one-on-one fee. It's really honestly to show commitment. So free, you'd have 60 people showing up. Yeah, 200. You maybe have 20 people showing up. Then I've come to this realization: if somebody wants to change, they'll really invest themselves something
Yeah.
in themselves. So now, I think one of the things that I've stopped doing is that I've stopped coaching or giving advice to people for free, and not because I need that 200 rands. It's because I'm doing it because of the factor, Hore, if unta 200 rands, it means, Hore, you are committed to this thing, right? We all have different pockets. 200 might be a big deal to another person, might be a small deal to another person. But the factor, Hore, you are showing up at a certain time, untabo 200 and stuff like that. It means you are dedicated to it. Because I just find, Hore, they confuse dating coaching with entertainment. And it's not entertainment. Unfortunately, it's because maybe the TV shows that we do are usually lifestyle or entertainment type of TV shows. But I say entertainment. It honestly is something that we do because we want to help other people. And I think I found that. And then what else have I found? Oh, the one question. A person has so, let's say, introspection, what, hasn't done an analysis of self to help me find a man. You know what I always say to somebody like that? I'm like, if I'm going to hook you up with someone, I must just make sure both of you are in a state where you can relationship. Where, what, you guys are ready to relationship and le sharp. Like, I want to hook you up with a guy who is mentally unstable or waiting emotionally unstable. I'm setting you up for failure and just a whole lot of work, unnecessary work. And it's the same thing. Then you say to people, let me get you ready before you get hooked up. I want a quick solution. I want a man today. So I think for me, that's the things that I find, even though they are beautiful, things where people turn their lives around, where people do things. And I always say to this, it takes a year to master this. And how do you master? It means that you are comfortable enough to say, Hore, waiting, I can meet 10 boys. Never mind, I'll know what to do when I'm on a date. But even if I meet Mr. Wrong, I'll know how to control myself in such a way, Hore, even if I found out he's Mr. Wrong after 3 months, I will be confident enough to walk away from something that doesn't serve me.
Yeah. Uh, Let me see. Okay, I don't have any questions on the comments. It's just people saying hi. Mukamo, I see you. Offense, I see you. Ke lebogile, I see you. So there's this thing where people make excuses why they're not in a relationship. You know, Moto, I know I'm too busy. No, my life is so busy right now. But they are lonely as hell. You know, Moto, they're privately lonely. But I think it has also a lot to do. You mentioned earlier self-esteem and confidence. It really does take a lot of work to put
Mm-hmm.
yourself out there and date. And people don't understand this. They just think you just wait there at home and somebody wonderful will just come and, it happens, but not a lot, What are some of the excuses that people make that leave them undateable, that leave them not being in relationships? Like I've mentioned one where somebody has said to me, no, I'm too busy. That's why I haven't been dating for the last 2 years. And I'm like, what excuse is that? I mean, you find Jacob Zuma, basadi ba five, as busy as he is, he makes time for his family. If he can do that, surely you have time. It's an excuse, right?
It is an excuse. So another excuse that I find is the race and nationality thing. So you'd be like, why aren't you dating? Who black men but not the issue? Who South African men are not good enough for me? And stuff like that and whatever. And then you're like, actually, my love, a man is a man is a man. There are great men and there are terrible men in both races. It's just that we socialize differently. So that's the one thing that I find. I find the career excuse. Oh, my career, this, people who are married to their careers. And I'll tell you why people who are married to their careers then make excuses about dating is because that's the only place they feel like a superstar. Usually, if you look at those people, when it comes to social skills, social abilities, integrating with other people outside, speaking intellectual stuff, and trying to show everybody how intelligent they are, they're usually lacking in that department. So they don't feel so confident, but they don't want to tell people, "Oh, you know what? I have social anxiety," or you know what, I just feel like I dedicated my whole life doing medicine for 10 years or 7 years. I don't know how long you become a doctor, that I didn't really date. And now dating is a new thing to me and so forth and whatever. What people do is that they make excuses with regards to that. People will also make excuses about the quality of men that they're out there. And I don't necessarily think that the quality of men in 1940 and in 2020 has really changed. Most of the issues that we have and which people in 1940 had is the same. It's just that we are experiencing it differently because we live in a different world where there's technology, there's instant gratification, and so forth and whatever. So people will go about the quality of men. There's also this thing that, yes, I mean, not to take away, but gender violence in South Africa is very real, right? But,
Mm.
there are people now where the excuse is, I can't trust men, or all men are dangerous, all men are this and this and this and this. And I feel like you're almost limiting yourself. I think every girl who goes on a date or who looks at somebody, whether we're going to potentially go on a date or not, does that screening to say, do I feel safe or not, would pick a public space. When they don't even start at that screening, they just reject the idea of men. And I'm not talking about people where they have been probably attacked or raped, or experienced this firsthand. I'm just talking about people whereby this is a fear that they have, and it's not even based on a personal experience. They haven't even tried it. So those are the other things that, from an excuse perspective. And I'm also hearing, especially men, they'll say dating is expensive. Um, and from one hand, I can hear where they come from. So I think the African female has been socialized to measure the man's ability to look after them and entertain them by the ability to look after themselves. So the idea, ya gore, you know what, your pocket is, a man is attractive in his pocket, or whether he sends e-wallets or takes you to Dubai or whatever it is that they do. So that's that one aspect. But I think the other thing is that men, in the process of impressing, they don't show up as themselves in the initial phases. Motho o tla fitlha a batla go isa ko signature, knowing very well gore yena, he's just a KFC person and he works on a KFC budget. I always say, if you set those expectations from the start, why do you think the girl is crazy to think that, you know what, this is the standard that you're setting for us? When now 1 month later, when you feel like, oh no, I've softened her up, now you want to apply a different standard. I think the other thing is that men, because they do circular dating more than women do, dating is expensive for them because they have to take 7 people out on a date in a month. It's all by expensive dating. So let's maybe stick to 1 or 2 people and it will become a little bit cheaper.
Yeah. Do we have actually literally under 60 seconds left, but please give us 5 more minutes just to wrap up if you can. I think enough for me. The thing is, I find people have the social lives, have the hobbies. Um, but the truth is that people don't know how to get people to be interested in them. And the
Mm-hmm.
truth is that people don't know how to be interesting themselves.
Yes.
And that's where it starts for me because it's easier to find people to go on a date with, but you don't know you don't know how you're gonna get them to even want to
Yeah.
listen to you. You don't even know. And it takes courage and confidence and self-esteem. And these are, it's almost like the same skills that you were talking about, or whether you like it or not. If you're gonna put yourself out there and date, you need to have the right confidence. You need to know how to speak. You need to know how to carry yourself. You need to know how to be interesting. But you also need to show when you are interested in a person because hangata, we play these little tricky games more um, playing hard to get unnecessarily. You can see this is the man for me. This is the man that I want. But you still want to play games. You still want to play tricks. You still want to use flirting wrong. You still want to use charm wrong instead of communicating. This is what I want. Where are you? This is
Mm-hmm.
how I want to be treated. Can you give me this? Why is it that we have high school conversations and are not having proper conversations? What are proper conversations to have when you figured this is my man, I want him? What next? How do you have a proper conversation? What does it consist of? What's in a proper conversation that will let
So
this man
just
know what
quickly,
I want?
Makabelo, it's timing number one. So there's certain conversations you can't have a conversation as to where we are going date one, right, and whatever. So I think most people don't know how to time conversations, and sometimes they get it wrong by having a certain conversation too early. Then they think, you know what, I shouldn't talk about my needs or what I want because it chases men away. No, it doesn't chase men away. It just simply says, when at the first day you came across as overwhelming. Number one. Number two, I think also a mature conversation around is things that you can back. So, for example, if I say I want you to be consistent, right, as my lover, then now I must look at myself and say I'm consistent. That thing that I expect from you, is it the same thing that I live with regards to my life? And I think the other thing is that we don't know how can I put it? We don't know how to conversate to build. It's the same as fighting. People know how to fight to destroy, but how to fight to build a relationship is something that's very different. So it's also that in that conversation, we don't know how to have conversations whereby we're working towards building. We might have difference of opinion, or the other person, you might have to bring them along and so forth. We give up too quickly. You have the conversation, hi, Hank, you wanna, hi, there's something wrong with him, on to the next one and so forth and whatever. But you've never learned that particular skill. People don't understand, you know, if you use dating effectively, even if you are 25 and you say, nah, I only want to get married at 32. So in the next 7 years, every guy that I meet, I meet with the intention of having fun. But if you date properly, it's good practice for your relationship, especially when you enter marriage. All the things that you were struggling with when you were dating, from hongala to whatever. Marriage tests you 100 times because or every day, so and whatever. So if I knew what I knew now, some of the things that I'd had to learn to perfect in my marriage, I wish I had. Like, yeah,
Yeah, I want to lay now.
no, no, they're not at Sangala. But when I entered the relationship at 12 o'clock at night, I'd pack my bag and stuff like that. And I just realized it wasn't yielding anything and so forth. And I realized, that's when I realized, well, this is a bad habit because I've been doing it for the last 100 years. And now this relationship was something that was important to me and whatever. But I think those are the things that if people learned how to communicate and also to understand also in closing, from a woman's perspective, we are emotional beings, and most of the time, whatever it is that we experience, it's via our feelings first. Do understand that, when you're going to, just because you feel a certain way about something, it doesn't mean that something is fact. So I
Yeah.
think most of the time, when we jump into conclusion, because you made me feel unwanted, that I am unwanted, and stuff like that. And I think from a male perspective, males also have to understand because women are feeling beings, you can't eliminate the feeling part of the relationship. You can't say, tell me facts from A to Z. Is this fact or fiction or whatever? You also have to understand that as much as there might be a fact there's a feeling that's associated. And if you understand, I always say that one of the things I learned about fighting effectively is that I would have a feeling and there would be a fact. And I would be reading the fact, or maybe the fact is presented in such a way that I read it in a certain way in terms of my feeling. Once you understand that gap in the middle, I'm doing this, but I see it makes you feel like this, and it wasn't intended to make you feel like this. It helps with communicating and moving forward.
Beautiful. Dudu, where do people find you? I mean, I'm sure gore batho are like, okay, I need a Dudu in my life. I need a Jesus Dudu in my life. Where do they find you? How do they reach you?
Okay.
Where do they follow
So I've got
you?
a page on Facebook, which is Dudu Madonsela. Then I'm also running what I call the Dating MBA on Facebook. So since I don't have time to do one, not Facebook, on Instagram, yeah. Since I don't have time to do one-on-ones, but I realize that this is important, people need it. I do videos whereby I stream for like 20 minutes, and there's a lecture. I actually lecture one, lecture two, lecture two. And what I want people to realize is that if you were coming for coaching, I would be charging you 1,000 rand a session
Mm.
in order to give you what I'm giving you on Instagram for free. So that is my secret. Go in, like literally utilize that platform. I'm not so big on Twitter. Twitter is a bit of a young market for me, but it's Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah. Thank you so much for honoring me with your time, your very
Thank you.
expensive time. I hope we do this again, but this time, with more practical examples and tips for the ladies and for the gents on how to navigate dating. There's a lot of comments here, but you know what? We're out of time. Offense, I see your questions for Dudu. Hopefully, she will go and check the comments out and then comment directly to you. Dudu, thank you so much, my darling.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Guys, that was Dudu. Okay, that was Dudu Kabati, Madonsela. I actually forget this other surname. And she was unpacking dating for us. Thank you so much for the comments and for joining me. I'll see you again, guys, tomorrow with Le Bupule. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.